Did you know that around 57 million Americans work for companies that don't provide retirement savings options? This means that most adults that are closer to retirement are at a higher risk of homelessness than ever before. We all work hard, hoping to save enough money to retire and enjoy our later years comfortably. But the sad reality is, for many Americans, that dream never becomes a reality. The retirement crisis and soaring rents have left millions of seniors financially strained. Imagine working your entire life and still not being able to afford a house in the later part of your life. That's the reality of many baby boomers in America today. They've weathered economic downturns and skyrocketing housing prices without seeing their incomes grow accordingly. This means many haven't saved enough for a comfortable retirement. According to a recent report by the Wall Street Journal, older adults now make up the fastest-growing segment of the country's homeless population. This surge in elderly homelessness echoes the hardships seen in the Great Depression. Experts have coined this worrying trend as the silver tsunami to describe this crisis that's been brewing for years. A report by the American Society of Aging has shown a steady rise in homelessness among older Americans since the early 2000s. In the 1990s, only 11% of homeless single adults were aged 50 or older. By the early 2000s, this percentage had skyrocketed to 37%. Today, half of the homeless single adults in the U.S. are over 50, underscoring the vulnerability of baby boomers aged 57 to 75. People ages 65 and older are the fastest-growing age group of people who are homeless. By 2030, their numbers will triple. It's deeply saddening to see because these individuals have spent their entire lives working, often in physically demanding jobs, and yet still couldn't save enough for their golden years. Government data shows a staggering 11% increase in homelessness nationwide over the past year, far surpassing previous records. It also doesn't help that multiple relief programs have halted, worsening the situation for these people as these programs provided a crucial safety net. Historically, there were very few homeless individuals over 60. But conditions have drastically changed in the last decade. According to Business Insider, from 2007 through 2017, the percentage of people 51 and older in homeless shelters rose from 16.5% to 23%. The National Healthcare for the Homeless Council reported a similar trend, with the percentage of baby boomer patients served rising from 25% in 2012 to 36% in recent years. What makes this situation even worse is that while on one hand, the rate of homelessness is increasing, and on the other hand, the number of affordable nursing homes and assisted living centers is shrinking. This is happening because there aren't enough people to work in these places. Prices are going up due to inflation, and there's less money being given to them. Let's take Florida, for example. It's got the highest number of people aged 65 or older, but since 2017, over 600 nursing homes there have closed. The Wall Street Journal posted an article on how are people stuck in hospitals because there are no nursing homes to take them, just like what's happening in the UK's national health system. It was embarrassing for the UK, but it's a scandal in the US. This situation shouldn't have reached this point in the first place. The problem is not just in one area. It's happening in many areas across the U.S. As a result, seniors have to wait a long time to get into more affordable housing and care facilities covered by Medicaid. Federal data shows that for every 100 very low-income people looking for a place to rent, there are only 33 affordable places available. This means that many homeless shelters end up acting like nursing homes, even though their staff might not be properly trained to help with things like bathing. An important reason for all this is the worsening economic situations we've dealt with over the years. From the Great Recession of 2008 to the pandemic of 2020, all these economic crises have caused millions of people to lose the value of their homes. A study from the University of California found that a lot of people from the tail end of the baby boomer generation became homeless for the first time after they turned 50. This happened because many things happened over the years that made them lose their financial safety net and didn't leave them with enough money saved up. Between 2020 and 2024, rents went up really fast, the fastest they've gone up in a long time. This made it hard for the average person to afford rent. Florida, in particular, got hit hard by this. Half of the 20 biggest cities there saw rents shoot up like crazy since the pandemic started. Sadly, things are expected to get even tougher for seniors in the coming years. By 2040, the number of Americans aged 65 or older is expected to grow by 45%, from 56 million today to 81 million in just 20 years. At the same time, there are fewer and fewer affordable places for them to live. And the fact that many people who are about to retire don't have any savings means there's a big problem coming our way. All this can be attributed to poor saving habits in Americans. An analysis by the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that only 1 in 10 low-income workers aged 51 to 64 had saved for retirement last year, compared to 1 in 5 in 2007 before the Great Recession hit. These workers typically earn around $119,000 each year. Shockingly, only the top 10% of all workers by income have increased their retirement savings since 1992, while the other 90% saw no significant increase. This gap has widened due to more companies offering voluntary retirement plans instead of guaranteed ones, like pensions. So naturally, when there's a gap in earnings growth, there's also a gap in retirement savings. The problem might not just be that people aren't saving enough, but also how the U.S. system is set up. The U.S. relies on Social Security and private pensions like 401ks, but many low-wage workers don't have access to retirement plans through their jobs, and private pensions are disappearing, with less than 15% of private sector workers having them. This leaves a lot of Americans depending mainly on Social Security, which only replaces about 40% of their income in retirement. This isn't enough, especially with rent going up. As of August, about 23% of Americans over 65 were living in poverty. Social Security is facing a full-blown crisis. This crisis is causing hardship for workers and the millions of people who rely on Social Security. It's been a growing problem for years. A new report from the Mercer CFA Institute Global Pension Index shows that the U.S. ranks 22nd out of over 47 countries. The U.S. got a C+ grade for its retirement system, putting it on par with countries like Kazakhstan, Colombia, and Croatia. In contrast, countries like the Netherlands, Iceland, Denmark, and Israel have much better retirement systems. This flawed approach to retirement planning has left about 2/3 of working Americans over 50 uncertain about when or if they can retire as planned. As retirement savings shrink, household debt is reaching record highs. Total household debt hit an all-time high of $17.06 trillion in the second quarter, with credit card debt alone rising by $45 billion to a record $1.03 trillion. For many seniors, this overwhelming debt is crushing their retirement dreams. According to the latest Ipsos poll on retirement, about 1 in 5 Americans believe they will never retire. Among the people who don't think they'll ever retire, a decisive majority of 70% say that they won't ever retire because they can't or won't be able to afford to retire. These numbers are troubling because they show that many Americans don't see a way to achieve the financial security they deserve. Sadly, a lot of these people might not be able to keep working when they're older, even though they want to. In a wealthy country like the United States, it's not acceptable for anyone, especially seniors, to end up homeless. Instead of helping people have a comfortable retirement, our leaders seem to be putting the burden on us. They're making workers support a system that's not fair, even after they've worked hard their whole lives. Once again, it feels like we're on our own. If housing costs keep going up faster than people's incomes, older Americans will have no choice but to work until they can't anymore. If you want to make sure you have enough savings to retire early, make sure to click the video on screen now where we reveal the 7 money-making habits of some of the wealthiest people in the world.